Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Go Beyond. My name is Alyssa Robinson, and I am here with our senior pastor, Daniel Humbert. And every Monday and Wednesday at 12:30, we pop online and have a live conversation digging deeper into the message from Sunday. So on Mondays, we go over the huddle guide and huddle discussion, which you can find in a link either above me, below me, beside me, depending on where you're watching. And on Wednesdays, I get to make up my own questions. But if you want to follow along with us, you can always click in that link and see the huddle discussion questions for yourself. But I'll go ahead and jump right in to our question today.
I like Mondays better because you have to answer those questions too.
I know. And I like Wednesdays better for obvious reasons. I get to be in complete control. So this week we were focused on fasting for direction. We are in our Lenten series called Empty to Full, and it's all about emptying ourselves through fasting to be able to fill ourselves with God's presence. And this week is all about direction. And so our first question, which hopefully will clarify some other questions y'all might have, is why is being empty helpful in God's direction?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like logic, does it? So part of that, I think, is just my understanding of all this, and hopefully then it's helpful to others. But I know when I'm trying to figure stuff out, whether it's literally just on my own, but certainly if I'm trying to determine where God's leading me or guiding me or directing me, I have to sort of empty myself. I have to empty myself of thoughts. I have to empty myself of my activities, put down electronics, close off, that kind of stuff. And that is what fasting is supposed to do for us, right? And so part of fasting is sort of purging us of whatever it is we're fasting from, whether it's food or habits or behaviors. And so to me, it's just sort of logical. Now, there are people in my own life that I know who function really well with all kinds of stuff going on around them, and they can do it. I can't. I need to sort of purge stuff. And I think fasting just kind of helps demonstrate that. So it works for me. I hope it works for others.
Well, and this series is hard for me to answer the huddle discussion questions because I don't know. Normally, I have an opinion on everything. I'm a very opinionated person. I'm fasting for the first time in a really long time, and I'm learning about fasting in a new way. So when I'm asked the question, why is being empty helpful to God's direction? I have no idea because I have never done this before, and I don't know what kind of direction can come in. I mean, the things that you're saying in my head make sense, but until I experience it for myself, I can't answer that question.
Yeah, well, that's an honest answer, right? And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
I just know that the emptying part is all about, as I mentioned Sunday, making room for God. That's the point. And so if I can purge myself of other things, whatever it is, activities or habits, behaviors, whatever, if I can make room for God, I'm going to be more likely to listen, to be able to discern, to be able to better understand whatever God might be trying to communicate to me. And that's the purpose.
So question number 2, what is most difficult about fasting for you?
The whole thing. Whatever I give up, I don't really want to give up, right? I mean, we live in a culture, and I'm certainly well enculturated into that culture, that doesn't like to give up things because we have access to so much, whatever it is. And we don't have to be wealthy to have access to stuff. We just have such access to things that it almost sort of rubs us raw to give something up, because our mentality is, well, gosh, I can do that. I can go get that. On a very simplistic level, my daughter has started working, and so now she's got some disposable income, right? And so, man, she goes and buys stuff left and right, just simply because she can now, right? And I think we all live into that. And so for me, fasting is hard because it's not my natural inclination to give something up, because I don't have to give something up. So it's hard.
Well, so this one I do have an answer to because I am fasting and this weekend I was really struggling. So I've already shared with y'all, and I shared in my podcast episode that I'm giving up TV until 10 a.m. every day. I had to take one small step. Some people can do the full give up TV for 40 days. I couldn't do that. So until 10 a.m. every day, I'm not watching TV. And I claimed, in my podcast episode, that weekends I know are going to be really hard for me. And I ran into that. I think last weekend I did okay. Yeah, this Friday I did okay. Saturday was so hard for me. I woke up in the morning, I did my devotion, I did my meditation, and then it was 8 a.m. And I had another 2 hours until I was allowed to turn on the TV. And I was so bored. I was so bored. And I was just literally sitting on the floor of my living room with the dogs, just itching to grab the TV remote. I looked ridiculous. I looked so forlorn, like sitting in my pajamas on the floor, like a child. Like, what now? What do I do now? Um,
I was
and
going to ask if there's anything good on TV on Saturday mornings, but you've got access to anything, right? I mean,
I could watch anything. I've got Netflix, I've got Hulu, I've got HBO Max. Like I could watch anything I wanted. And I'm just sitting there twiddling my thumbs. And so the hardest part of fasting for me, um, is stopping and listening because it's easy for me. So like this morning was easy because I woke up, I had a list of things to do. I did my devotion, I did my prayer, I did my meditation, I get ready for work, I go to work.
yeah,
And so I have these things that I need to accomplish. On a morning that I don't have the things that I need to accomplish, which I would argue is probably the best opportunity to actually spend time with God, I was a wreck because I was like, I already read the Bible. Like, what else do you want from me? And it only took me 15 minutes.
yeah,
Like, what else do I do with my time?
yeah. Well, I
And
appreciate you sharing that because I think that you're right. I mean, it demonstrates that we've got access to stuff, and in your case, it's the TV. And golly, what do we do with ourselves, right?
yeah, so I need to work on actually listening to what God, and I think that's where the discernment and the direction comes in of it's one thing to empty myself and go through the motions and say, okay, I'm not turning on the TV. I'm reading my Bible. I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do. But if I don't stop and have the patience to listen to what God is trying to tell me, even if I do all the things I'm supposed to do, it's still not going to work.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know what I mean by work,
Yeah,
but
no, that's right. But that's so again, that's that whole emptying deal so that you can listen. And in this case for you, it's listening, right? That may be the issue. And I would submit that for most of us, that's in terms of our engagement with God, I think for Western Christians, that's the hardest component is listening because we're listening for a voice like you and me talking to each other right now. And of course, we're not going to hear that. And therefore, what are we listening for? And what are we waiting for? And what are we expecting? And it's hard. I think it is one of the hardest components.
yeah, so I'm hoping to get better at that as this goes on, or I'll get even worse. I don't know what's going to happen.
Maybe you'll start talking to your dog more. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like my dogs could teach me a lot about God's presence.
See, there you go. I would agree.
So, our last question today, how does fasting help us discern?
Well, of course, we've talked some of that already, right? The emptying is a part of that. And a part of what I shared Sunday was also that emptying helps focus. So it helps us to sort of be in that zone, if you will, that you were sort of self-discovering on Saturday, which is what do I do with this? And how do I, focus on this? And so to me, there's that whole sense of focus. I use that analogy about my driving in the rainstorms that I got to get real focused, and fasting can help us do that. And then, as you've highlighted, the listening component. Hopefully, in time, because again, if we're out of practice or never done it or whatever, it is hard. But all the more that we can focus and therefore try to figure out, God, what are you trying to say? Where are you trying to point me? Is there something that I'm needing to see or understand? I tell you, I got real excited Sunday. It was so funny. While I was in the room preaching on Sunday, at the end, when I challenged the congregation to use this fasting not only to discern how they might be generous for the Mozambique endeavor and how they might discover God's will for their own lives, when I got to the third challenge or invitation, I just said, look, we as a congregation need to discern kind of where we might be going or what God might be leading us into. And man, I just got all excited because I thought, man, if we could do this collectively, there's bound to be some great input, some great insight, some great understanding that I can't quite see yet, or some of us can't quite see yet, but somebody might. And that's just exciting to me. So
Yeah.
that's how I think it works.
Well, and for this week's message hit me a little bit harder, like right between the eyes, than previous messages, because it was talking about discernment, and discernment is my spiritual gift.
Mhm.
And so, and I think that I've always taken it for granted. I treated it as a superpower of I have the gift of discernment, and it's very easy for me to see like what's the next step I should take, and I don't really second guess myself very often. And I think that fasting for me, what I have found, and maybe this was a weird version of fasting that I didn't even know that I was doing. When I let go of control and when I stop putting my plans together of how I'm going to accomplish fill in the blank, because I see a challenge before me, it feels overwhelming, and I start spinning my wheels of, okay, how am I going to fix it? What am I going to do? When I let all of that go, I find that the answer just magically comes to me one day, and I suddenly know what I'm supposed to do next. And I say magic, but possibly it's the spirit
Yeah.
coming to me and telling me what I need to do next. But the issue for me is to stop spinning my wheels and stop trying to fix it myself. And I think that when you were talking about discernment in the service on Sunday, I was like, wow, what was the last time in my job in which I work for the church and I'm a steward of the church's money that someone comes to me with a problem and I stop and turn that problem over to God? Because I feel like half of my job is troubleshooting and figuring out, why isn't this working? Why isn't that working? How can we make this better? Why aren't people engaging with X? And I get so caught up in my own way of doing things of I know the answer. I don't stop to think, Alyssa, your role at this church is to be a servant of God. And my job I should be using my spiritual gift of discernment to do what God is wanting me to do, not what I think we should do to better market the church.
People, are you listening? That's great. That's good stuff. And we all need to learn that. And I'm grateful, so that you realize that the gift of discernment is in many ways a superpower, but it also is challenging because you've sort of controlled it, but you're learning how not to control it. And that's where you need to be. That's cool. That's cool.
So that is all the questions today. Today was a great conversation. I really hope that y'all are having these conversations at home with your families.
Yes.
It's great dinner table conversation, and there might be a new perspective that you didn't think of before. And so you can always go to tmumc.org/stories to get the huddle guide each week. And I'd like to invite you again to join us at tmumc.org/Lent for extra resources, podcasts. Pastor Nick has been releasing a weekly blog post talking about how you can incorporate the Psalms into your prayer time during Lent while you're fasting. We have so many resources for you to help you grow spiritually during this time. So I hope you'll go to tmumc.org/Lent and